4 years ago, we got hit with a historically significant event in the COVID-19 pandemic. It's the type of event that changed human history, or not really history, you can't change history, it already happened, but changed the course of human trajectory and human life forever. It's the kind of event that people will look back and say, at that point was where humanity changed, where society shifted. We went through in the last 4 years something so historically significant that our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all the way down the line will study what we've gone through. We'll look at the great pandemic of 2020, just like we've looked at the Black Plague, the Spanish flu, the World War II. I mean, all these historically significant events in the past we just lived through. But I would say that the greatest pandemic that we might face in our lifetime, we're looking at right now, as a result of COVID-19, we are faced with another pandemic. The pandemic of loneliness that is literally killing us. Literally killing our congregations. Killing our loved ones, our grandparents, our parents, our friends, our neighbors. Whether it's through suicide because we don't have anyone else to lean on, or it's through apathy of not caring, or it's through something like Alzheimer's and dementia, which studies show are sped up through loneliness. The exact thing that people with cognitive decline need is relationship with their loved ones. This is why when you look at the numbers from the COVID-19 pandemic, especially early on with the lockdowns, a majority of those numbers were in the elderly. But you're now starting to see studies come out that confirm many of those deaths were not COVID that killed them, but loneliness, because they were isolated from the exact people they needed to sustain life. Because in loneliness kills, especially if you have cognitive decline. They found that in recent studies that those that do not have regular cognitive interaction will decline at a significantly higher rate. They will pass away at a significantly higher rate. They found that they take people who have cognitive decline and they start getting them to interact with music, with family members. Not only does their decline stop, in many cases it starts to reverse, which is something that many have not been readily wanting to admit, that you're starting to see some repair going on within the brain of those going through cognitive decline. So loneliness literally can kill. But loneliness is killing the church as well. 60% of our congregations have not returned to regular church attendance. 6 out of 10, 60 out of 100, 600 out of 1,000 have not come back to regular church attendance. Now, this isn't about money. This isn't about paying a pastor's salary or a church mortgage. This is about operating and living in relationship. That, by the way, everything in life happens in the context of relationship. We were created to be in relationship with God. We were created to be in relationship with one another. We're told to not forsake relationship with one another. Now, regardless of why people haven't returned, is it fear? Maybe. Is it laziness? Possibly. Convenience? You're listening to me via digital means. You can listen to pretty much any sermon on the earth via digital means and get that amazing teaching. That's great. But the sermon, the teaching, is only a small portion of church. of the church gathering. It's about being in relationship with one another. It's about, as Ecclesiastes talks about, living in relationship, being together, and walking together. Why? Because when you work together, you have a better return on what you do. But also, if one falls down, the other can pick them up. But woe to the one who walks alone, because if he falls on his own, he's in big trouble. Woe to who walks in loneliness and isolation, because if you're dealing with something, you have no one there to lift you up. I've seen so many times in my own life where the answers to my need didn't come through some amazing spiritual breakthrough or some miraculous mean. I've never received manna from heaven or had water come from a rock, but I've received a meal and a glass of water from a friend. I've had people show up at my doorstep with groceries when there was a need, or money for gas when there was lack. Because of the relationship. Without that relationship, I would have been out of luck. It's through relationship that God answers most of our needs. In fact, I'd say probably through relationship is how God answers all of our needs. Relationship through Him, relationship with one another. So if everything comes through relationship, and relationship is what we're built upon from the very beginning, it's not good for man to be alone, so God creates companionship, relationship. We are to be in relationship. So it's no wonder if we are 60% of our church has not come back, that our churches are struggling. The statistics show that depression, anxiety, suicide, divorce are mirrored inside the church and outside the church. How is it that if we claim to serve the God of all creation, the great healer, the great physician, the great counselor, how is it that we have the same numbers inside the church as we do outside? Because we're not taking advantage of what God has laid out. We're not following the path of what God has laid out. It says very clearly, do not forsake the relationships. Do not forsake one another. Walk together. Grow together. As iron sharpens iron. But yet, COVID has forced so many of us into our homes. When really, we need to be getting back into relationship. Now more than ever, we're in a pandemic of loneliness. We're in a need for triage of the wounded, of our own woundedness, that really only comes through relationship. Look at the example Christ gives us. Everything that he did was in the relationship context with 12 men who invested in others, The church was built on relationship. The church is only successful and healthy when there's relationship. The gospel only goes out when there's relationship. If we want to see change occur, who likes what you see going on in our nation, in our world? Who's happy with what we see? Well, you know what? You can't change it if 60% of us are hanging out at home, not investing in one another. We can't change it if we don't gain the strength from one another. I'm not even saying going out and protesting or doing any of that. Gather together. Grow together. Find the strength that's been lost over the last 4 years. We need one another. The world needs us to gather together. Like I've said, we are literally dying from loneliness. Further evidence, I just came back from a trip to Liberty where I went to Research Week on campus and went to a mental health conference. The number one thing that I saw in all those studies, more than anything else, was loneliness. The number one issue on Liberty's campus, a campus, by the way, that is so focused on relationship that they have events every day for relationship. Convocation with the amazing speakers every week. Campus community. I mean, facilities that give places for students to gather and meet and commune together. A campus so focused on that is one of their main focuses. But the biggest issue that they face, and I saw this in so many studies during Research Week, is loneliness. Loneliness is the biggest issue that they face. I go to this mental health conference and sit through this this breakout session where they talk about loneliness and the loneliness that they see. I'm hoping to be able to get some of their stuff to be able to show just how big of an issue this is. And I think I have to sneeze, so if I sneeze, forgive me. But if Liberty is dealing with this, how much more is your church, is my church, are our friends, our family members dealing with loneliness? No wonder the church has been weakened. No wonder our influence has diminished. No wonder we're dealing with the same issues that the secular world does. Because we're not embracing the structure that Christ, that God has laid out for us. You want to see God's strength? You want to see revival? It starts with getting back into relationship with one another on a regular basis. Bottom line. You can't grow spiritually without relationship. You can't overcome your emotions without relationship. You can't psychologically heal without relationship. You need interaction with one another. There's no way around it. That's the way God created us. So if you want to see change, you want to be change, it starts with getting back into relationship. And it starts with reaching out to those that you haven't spoken to in a while. It starts with reaching out to your mentors or those that you've mentored and lifting them up and encouraging, let's get back into physical interaction with one another. If we do that, I promise we will see change in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our cities, in our churches, and in our nation. So let's fight the loneliness and unite in relationship. Thank you. God bless.